Well, hey, everybody. Welcome to When We Walk. This is a little podcast where we discuss the questions we all ask as we walk through life. I'm Micah.
And I'm Shireen.
Thanks for joining us. Let's chat.
All right, Joran, what do you have for us?
Okay, so we have a little game to kick off.
Okay.
So if you see on that little table,
Stack of papers.
Yep.
you each have a stack of papers.
Okay.
And so we're going to be playing Guess the Staff by their baby photo.
Oh.
Oh,
Staff by
our
baby
staff.
photos.
Some of them are harder than, like, I didn't recognize them and I knew who they were. So
Oh, my goodness. Okay.
it might be a
Okay.
little difficult. And if you can't get it, I'll just tell you. But we have, I think, 7 here. So
Do we have the same ones? So
Yep.
it's like a race?
it should be in the same order.
So we
it can
flip it
be a
over and
race.
then say. Okay.
Yeah, let's do it that way.
Okay.
And then you can show the camera too when you flip it.
Okay.
So make sure it's facing.
okay.
Okay.
So we're going to do this one.
Top one. Yep.
Okay.
Okay, ready? 1, 2, 3.
Okay.
Oh.
You want me to show right here? Is
You
that
can
right?
show.
Yeah, you can
Micah.
show across. Is this
I do. Okay, I'm going to...
Is this Naomi?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh.
Boom. That's what I thought.
Naomi, you're so cute.
Jesus loves you shirt.
Look at you.
that.
You're so
That's so great.
studious. Okay,
You are.
that's great.
Gosh, you're a cute little baby.
All right.
Okay, ready?
1
Yes.
to nothing.
1, 2, 3.
Oh, this is hard.
Dang, I'm trying to guess by the smile of the mom's face.
I know. That's what I was looking at. Who had blonde
gosh,
hair?
Is that a Keith kid? Is that Josiah?
No.
No.
Oh. Is it
Wait.
Caleb?
Taylor?
No. See, I didn't recognize this one either.
Yeah.
But
This is hard. He's
Hand
got
in
his
the face
hand on
is
his
tough.
face.
It's the
Yeah.
eyes. I'm trying to focus on the eyes. I don't know.
I'm going to tell you.
Yeah.
Yes.
Charles.
Charles.
Oh,
Aw.
Charles, don't be mad.
That's Charles.
Okay.
He said that was the only one he could find.
Yeah, I don't believe him. I bet there were better ones
Yeah.
he was unwilling to show. Okay,
ready?
All right.
1, 2, 3. Oh, wow.
I know it. I can see this person. I can totally see this person. Who is it? Oh my gosh.
I don't
the
know.
eyes.
I mean,
I know. That's why I'm staring at the eyes.
I'm so bad at
The bow
this,
tie.
apparently.
Oh my gosh.
I got
know
no
that
one.
I've looked at those eyes so many times. I'm trying to think.
Have you?
Have you?
I think
This
so.
is- I'm
They look
going to
so
say, I don't know. I literally,
Is it-
I just am going to
is
guess
it Dave?
No.
No.
That's Noah.
Noah?
I thought this
I
was
would have
such
been
an old
so- I-
picture.
that's
He
who-
said,
I
he
was
said it was
like-
going to throw you off because it
my
I was
gosh.
guessing
very
someone in a different
I
generation.
was looking at it. Yep. The sepia threw me off.
Definitely not
All right,
Noah.
Okay. All right. Never would have gotten that one.
Okay, we have a
Okay,
few
we are
more?
really
We're not good
bad
at
at
this.
this.
All right,
Okay, 1,
next
2,
one.
3. Ooh.
That, I think. Is that no? Blue eyes.
Okay, I'm gonna say Josiah Hintz. Okay.
I wonder if it's a girl.
Is it a girl? Great. Listen, when you're a baby and your hair's short, it's
I know,
really
it is
hard
hard
to
to
tell.
tell, yeah.
Okay, so it's a girl by Jordan's expression.
Is this? Gosh, I don't know.
Mandy Seda.
No.
Okay,
No.
I'm trying to go by like what's the setting here? It looks
yeah.
very 80s.
Yep. That high chair.
She's one of your good friends.
Is
Was
this
that
Lexi?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, because it does. It looks like Archer.
Sorry.
Okay.
Oh, it kind of does now that you said that.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay,
All right.
next.
We stink at this.
Okay.
All right. This is Brett Ballard.
Oh, yeah.
Ah,
That's
yeah.
easy.
He hasn't changed a bit, Brett. That's so
That
great.
was a little too
I love
easy.
it. Okay.
Okay.
All
Okay,
right.
2 more.
Oh, you turn faster than me.
Oh,
That's
is
a Keith
kid.
No, this is
No.
Danny Woodhead.
No,
no.
this is Josiah.
Yeah, that's just
Oh, it's a Keith kid. I went back and forth.
Yeah.
Okay, is this our last one?
Yeah.
Yep, one more.
Ooh.
Nice slick. Slick Rick. That is turtleneck. Nice
Is
part.
this Trevor Larson?
No.
Okay.
Older.
Older.
Oh.
Oh my gosh.
Is that Taylor? No.
No, that's definitely not Taylor. Oh.
Wait. Give me a second. I'm trying to go through.
John Hunsberger? No. It's too baby. Like, he's younger than that. Okay. Who's in that face?
I will give you a hint.
Wait.
He
Is this BJ?
No.
He's an elder.
Oh, Andrew Hunt.
Nope.
Oh.
Oh my gosh.
An elder? Mm-hmm. I got no one.
This isn't Sean, is it?
It is.
It is?
Oh my gosh. This is Sean.
I think he looks like Cash a little bit.
Gosh,
like when he was younger.
Oh, he kind of does. Wow, that is a really, like, it's like a model photo.
No, it is.
Wow. Okay,
nice.
I'm really bad at this game.
I don't know who won, but
I don't know.
But we're terrible at it. And our staff's going to be
Brett and Naomi.
very disappointed at us.
Yeah,
the fact that you said you looked into people's eyes is a little creepy.
You look at people's eyes when you talk to them, right?
Yeah, but I mean,
I didn't
do
mean
you
like into their eyes. I said I look at their eyes. There's a difference, I think. Yep.
Wow. Well,
I was so confident because we've been around long enough and our staff is young enough where I thought I would
recognize
right off the bat recognize most of that, but nope.
Brett was the one. Brett, Naomi, you guys are just so.
Yep, you got it.
Yep, there we go. All right, thanks, Jordan. That was good.
Thanks. It's great. So, so let's make a little shift here, and let's dive into something we've been discussing on the weekends that I've been preaching about that I think is good conversation topic, not just for us, but for people to have with the people in their lives. We've been talking about the spiritual journey, and we've been hanging out really in stage 4 of the spiritual journey, which we've been calling the journey inward, where you ask kind of the big questions about life and God. And oftentimes it can be seasons of confusion or doubt or discouragement or disappointment. And then within stage 4, there's often a wall. One particular moment or situation where our will meets God's will. So it's not just that we're going through some hard things and asking questions. That's stage 4 in general, but it is, or going through a season that's causing us to ask some questions. But the wall is when our will meets God's will, and where whatever God seems to be doing in our lives or seems to not be doing in our lives really clashes with what we want him to be doing, what we hoped he would be doing. And I think people can relate to this on a lot of levels, but there's so many versions of it.
Yeah.
Which is why I thought it'd be good for us to discuss kind of how to maybe recognize when you're at a wall, which can be hard.
Yep.
Right? Because if it is your will versus God's will, sometimes we don't want to admit that's really what's going on.
Yeah.
But then also maybe give some examples and talk about how to get through it. And
Yeah, I think it's a season of life where just life gets hard, right? You get things start coming at you more than you had planned. You have maybe you're, later in life where you're more in your career and things get more challenging. Maybe you're married with kids and life just gets more full. And so things maybe haven't gone the way you had planned, or suffering starts entering in. I know that can happen sooner in our walk with the Lord, but a lot of times it is for most people a little bit later in their time with God. But so I think some of it is circumstantial, right? Like it's where you are in your season of life. And then some of it is just our flesh, and it is just maybe God is doing something or preparing us for something, and it is just God's hand in our life, or where he's moving us and allowing for things. So it can look, I think, so different, and that's the confusing part of all of it.
Yeah. I think you can kind of categorize it in some ways as like a life crisis. It's like something happens that maybe you didn't expect or that's traumatic. Faith crisis, maybe you start internally beginning to kind of ask questions and wrestling with things, or maybe even just the unexpected. Just something either suddenly comes into your life, or it can be the long term, like, this isn't how I expected life to go for me.
Yeah.
And then you hit this point of like real disappointment after a while that can then kind of feel like you're hitting a wall. So I do think too, a lot of times it does happen, kind of in that midlife or later in life, but it can happen early as well.
Yeah.
And so, Joran,
Yeah.
let's, have you ever hit a wall?
Yes.
Okay. All right. And it makes you laugh. That's good. It means you're through it. What, can you give us a quick explanation of any that you've experienced in life?
Yeah. I think I was 9 when I first moved, I grew up coming to Lifegate, and then, I moved when I was 9 to, I think 4 or 5 different states. I'm trying to count them in my head, but, the first move, it was okay. And then I was there for a few years. And then I finally, when I was settling in, I was like, okay, like I'm trusting in God. I'm seeing my family trust in God, just wherever he's leading us to go, because we just didn't really know like why we were moving. We didn't have just a plan. We just knew that God was calling us. And then we moved again. And then that was only for a couple years. And then I feel like between 2 to 4 years, my family moved. And after the second or third time, I felt so discouraged.
Yeah.
It felt like, well, there's no purpose. Like, why were we here if it was only for a couple years? Like, I just made these friends and now I'm moving. Like, why is God moving us? So I feel like it wasn't until I think when we finally moved back here, I felt why God did move us so many times. It was to grow me. I mean, for me personally, I think just my adaptability and my skills to just be able to come into different environments and just continue to have strong faith, even though it can, wobble at certain times. But I think it really grew me and it stretched me. And now I was able to go to college by myself in Florida and move back here. And I think in the midst of that was when it was hard, but I was really able to see the fruits of it for sure.
Do you feel like you questioned the Lord? Like big questions around your walk with the Lord. Do you feel like you questioned him a good bit?
For sure. There was times where I thought, is God real? Like, why would he put me through this when I'm so young? Just when you're young, you think the worst of it. So it was also a time when your own personality is shaping. So it was hard to put the pieces together and put God in those pieces and make it look like the real photo, but it wasn't finished yet. So that's why I think I couldn't fully see the picture.
Yeah, that's really good.
Way to describe it. Yeah. And I think that helps me to hear, because it's not just a midlife crisis thing. It's not just a kind of later in life thing. It can happen really at any point when we have a certain expectations around what we believe God will do for us or who we believe God is. And when those don't get met necessarily, that can create a little battle of the wills for sure. So that's really interesting. How about you?
I don't know. I feel like there have been different seasons of what the wall looks like. I know, I would say early on, looking back, I probably hit one not long after we got married. Wouldn't you say? Like when I was trying to figure out what to do with my life.
Yeah, I hadn't thought about that.
I felt so unsure of what God, because I had come out of a season where I was so sure of what I thought God wanted for me. And then I came back from Africa.
I came along and messed everything up.
You messed everything up. No, you didn't mess anything up. It was probably a good shaking. Now, looking back, it's always better to look back, right? To talk to someone who can look back on their season of their wall or, how some call it a dark night of the soul. Like that season, I would have not qualified as a wall. But now looking back, I'm like, oh, it was because God was kind of shifting some things in me and preparing me for maybe something else. But it was really challenging. You were settling into, I would feel like your call of growing in ministry with college students and preaching and teaching. Like you were really hitting like a stride, I felt like. And I was in a season of, I don't know what to do with my life. It was like the feeling of college students when they come in and trying to figure out their major and I guess I'm going to do this. It was like I was having that all over again post-college. Yep. And it was so rattling for me because personality-wise, I was always such a...
You always had a plan.
I always had a plan.
What was next.
Yeah. So that was a really interesting... I think the way I can look back and kind of say I think it was a wall is because I do remember... I haven't looked back on journal entries. Do you ever go back to your journal sometimes and you're like, God, I was weird or I was silly or I was dumb? I don't know. I look back, I read my old journal entries thinking I'm going to go back and read them. And then I'm like, oh, what? Oh, poor little Shireen here. Like that was the things you were worried about.
You are who you are.
I know in the moment.
That's all of life.
But I do. I think I went back.
I think if you don't look back and have a different perspective, you maybe haven't grown a whole lot.
That's a good point.
So, yeah.
That's a good point. But sometimes I look back and I'm like embarrassed for myself. That's a terrible thing. But anyway, maybe that's just me. But I do remember after we moved to Omaha, I think I went back. I was going back through old journals. And I remember looking back on some of those from that season because I journaled a lot. Because I wasn't working a lot. Do you remember that? I didn't have a lot going on in my life.
I know.
I was working.
And you like to have a lot going on.
I need to feel like I am checking boxes for the day. Like I have worth.
This was our Oprah conversation.
Oh my gosh. Yes.
Where we're having dinner together. And I told you about what was happening at work that day. And you told me what you watched. You started to tell me what the episode of Oprah that you watched. And you stopped halfway through and just like broke down in tears.
I broke down crying.
All I did today was watch Oprah. What am I doing with my life?
And here you were telling me about these like big things for the Lord and like plans for freshman ministry. And I mean, you had like a little part-time job. It just wasn't real full at that point. No, it wasn't. It was one of those like, I forgot what it was. It was like through a program where you kind of help kids. It was like health education. So I was going into homes. Stuff, kind of social work, health education. You
knew this isn't what I'm going to do forever. I felt this kind of lostness.
Yes. Yeah. And I struggled through that season, but I remember looking back in my journals and reading things that I had written about, like, God, have you forgotten me? Like those kind of questions. Yeah. Like we had big conversations when I was in Africa. We had big plans. I was going to do these things for you. And I was ready to do whatever you asked for me. And here I am. I have this job, which I knew felt like it had some purpose to it, but I couldn't build my clientele. And I felt very inadequate in what I was doing. You know, a new college graduate into trying to get into your field is you can feel very like insecure and inadequate in what you're doing. And I just felt I remember asking the Lord, like, do you even see me anymore? You know, like, where are you? Look at my husband and the things he's doing. And I'm not even, I don't even have enough to fill my day, you know? And I felt it was a struggle. That was a really hard season. And I don't think I had language for it at the time. I was just miserable.
Yeah.
Wouldn't you say?
Yeah. You're really unhappy. So, but I would say, how do you think you got through it?
Oh gosh, I don't know. I don't know because that was before counseling. Yeah. I mean, I think I talked to my friends a lot. I talked to you. I mean, I never, the question of like walking away from the Lord was never a question for me. I am such a high committed like person. And when I told Jesus yes, I assumed this is what you do and you never turn away. So I think I saw it as a season of like, I'm just wrestling with God through this season.
Yeah.
Like this is a wrestling, this is a Jacob, right? Kind of wrestle with God kind of season. And I think I just was okay with that. I didn't have any other choice.
Yeah.
I think I told the Lord, I'm willing to take another job. I'm willing to do something different, but nothing. I even I think I pursued some other things.
Yeah.
But it actually wasn't until towards the end of that season where I said, I think I'm going to apply to nursing school. And it was very late. Do you remember that? It was a very late in the game applying for college, to go back to college for me in that sense. And it looked so dumb to be doing that. We had no money. Yeah. And I think I was just desperate for something else. And you were like, try.
It doesn't. Got to take a swing.
We just got to do something to help you feel like you have some purpose in life.
Yeah.
And so I remember applying and thinking, if I get into this program, it was such a small nursing school program. If I get in, and I only applied to the one school, right?
Yeah.
It was a shot in the dark of like if I get in, then God, I trust that that's what you have for me. And if I don't, I will keep just pressing through.
Yeah.
But I'm in a place where I am desperate for something to change. And last minute, I think I was actually on the waiting list. I think they sent me a letter. I was on the waiting list. And then last minute, I got in.
Yeah.
Do you remember that?
Yeah. It's pretty great. And we didn't even know how we were going to make it all happen. We just knew it was the right thing to do. We had peace about that. And to some degree, I think that version of the wall, it kind of moved you. Sometimes I think what the wall does in us is it kind of breaks something inside of us because of the battle of the wills. And meaning like we're not going to get through the wall unless we just surrender.
Right.
Like God in his kindness won't necessarily change our circumstances. It's like waiting for us to trust him more deeply before like he really makes the move that we often want. I think oftentimes that's what the wall can look like as we get through it. I think in this situation though, is that God was maybe doing something more external, like trying to move you in a particular direction. And that wall kind of helped push you in that direction. Still surrender was the goal of the wall. I think surrender is always like the way through the wall, but it was, all right, Lord, what do you have for me? And you couldn't just continue on the path that you were on because you felt how empty it was. You had to be willing to take a risk and go after something different and new. And I remember that being hard for you too, because it kind of felt like I just spent 4 years going in this particular direction and now a whole new direction and another 2 years. And it was a little bit of a shot, I think, to your pride of like, wait, I thought we were going this way and now we're going this way. But it turned out to be these amazing 2 years for you.
It was, I know. And that's why I think the Lord had to kind of break some things in me in that season, another level of surrender to be able to step into the next season. Yep. Yeah.
That's good. Yeah. I mean, I think, I do think the surrender piece is important for us to talk about when it comes to the wall, is just recognizing that the wall is less of an obstacle and more of an invitation. That's the way I like to think of it. It's in the moment, it feels like an obstacle, and it has to, if it's really going to serve its purpose. I think the guy who wrote, Man's Search for Meaning, can you look that up real quick? I think it's Eli Wiesel, maybe.
Okay. I don't know. I haven't read that.
Yeah. He spent years in a Jewish concentration camp and then came out and wrote about his experience, Man's Search for Meaning, a very like popular book. It was, I think Jimmy Fallon read it when he like broke his finger or whatever. Remember whatever he did to his hand? Yeah,
because of his wedding ring.
Yeah,
it almost ripped his finger off.
And he came out with like, I have this newfound sense of purpose. And Who is it?
It's by Viktor Frankl.
Viktor Frankl. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
So
what is it called again?
Somebody.
Man's Search for Meaning.
Man's Search for Meaning.
Okay.
Viktor Frankl. Okay. And he's got this great line where he says, as soon as suffering finds meaning, it ceases to be suffering.
Oh, wow.
Because
that's really good.
If you feel like you know why something is happening, no matter what it is, you can endure it. Mm-hmm. What we can't endure is when we don't know what's happening.
Yeah.
And to me, that's the wall. And oftentimes, when we finally surrender our will to God's will, and he faithfully carries us through in whatever way he sees fit, which he always will, we look back and we see the meaning. Mm-hmm. And that's why we look in our journal and we're like, gosh,
how could I have been
such a dummy?
Silly.
Right?
Yeah.
But it didn't, the lack of meaning is what made it hard.
Yeah.
It's not just the circumstance itself or the lack of uncertainty about where this is going to go. And then once you know where it's going to lead, it has meaning now, and all of a sudden it's no longer suffering.
So it's like you have to endure that season of the unknown piece.
It's unfortunately.
And that is the hardest part.
And unfortunately, God will lead us into those.
Yeah. I mean, that's the wilderness.
He led Jesus, the Holy Spirit led Jesus into the wilderness. Yeah.
I mean, the Israelites in the wilderness, there's so much imagery of the wilderness that we're all going to experience it. So and that is where we believe God gives us a choice. We have a choice. Do we want to keep following him through it in that unknownness, if that's word, or are we going to walk away? Mm-hmm. Because we'd rather go back to something we know, to something comfortable, to I don't want to sit in the unknown because I like control, right? A lot of it is control. If you're comparing it surrender and control, and I think that's a really helpful understanding of what the wall really is when we come into one. And I think one of the things I think about with it when I remember reading it more, I know you read one book, I read a different book of the way it was described in the book I read was more John of the Cross verbiage of Dark Night of the Soul.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It's kind of how he kind of coined that phrase back in the 1500s or something. And the way he kind of unpacked it, and others who have studied that have said it's kind of an unknown time frame.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Like when you're entering in and you're in it, you don't know. It could last months. It could last years. There are people who I think enter in seasons of dark night, pain, suffering, whatever you want to call it, the wall, and it can last a really long time. Mm-hmm. And for some people, that is really hard to endure. Yeah. I mean, thinking of a Jewish man in a concentration camp, that is an unknown ending of how long you're going to be here and what the end will look like. Yeah. And that is a hard mental state for a lot of people to enter into.
Yeah.
And I think it does take some depth of walking with Jesus to be able to endure that Big season.
Time. Yeah.
Because it's hard. I think sometimes now looking back, I know we were talking about this before. We have a little pre-conversation before our conversation, just so we know where we're going as we're talking for all you listening. But you said, I don't think I've really had a wall season. I
don't think I've not had any, but
I think our whole years of waiting for you for the decision of, am I going to be the lead pastor at Lifegate? I think that is kind of like
discernment process.
Yeah.
Is like a wall for me. Yeah. I've never
I don't think
that.
The whole,
I
mean, for us, it was 10 years to the date, but even let's go back, if it was the first 7,
the first trying to discern, is this even what God wants?
From the point that we feel like God opened that door. But I don't think it always means that you are sackcloth and ashes, suffering. Right. Mm-hmm. That's not always what a wall season looks like.
Yeah.
There are still, Jesus, there is pain, but there is joy also, right? Mm-hmm. So I think I look back and I think that could have been a wall season for you.
Yeah.
I can remember so many conversations that very much mimic like, oh my gosh, where is God in this? And I don't know if this is what we want to do.
Yeah. Yeah. That makes sense. I hadn't thought about that before. But if you think about the common denominator, there's so many versions of walls, from what Jordan shared to what you shared to that, is, if the common denominator is it's a battle of the wills. It requires surrender to get through it. I would say, that season was that. Like it was 6 years of us wrestling with God. What do you have for us? Here's what we want, but what do you want? And maybe we don't even really know what we want. And can we even trust what we want? And it was a real battle of like, where does our will fit with God's will, and and eventually coming to the point where we could say, Lord, everything in our life is pointing in this direction. We'll surrender to that. Like we'll follow that lead. We'll go there. And it did. I think it did I came out of that whole season. There was so much angst.
Yes.
And I think that's what you're kind of getting at. For 6 years, it was just angst for me.
And like you said, the questions of God, where are you leading us? Where are you in this? There was no clear answers to any of the questions at that point. And that to me is a good indicator of a wall season. Is like, we're asking a million questions and God seems to not be giving answers. Yeah.
Yeah, that's good. Like, and so it's not always like deep depression. It's not always like the sense of like, I'm just deeply suffering, but there is an inner discomfort, and that can look like depression. It can look like anger towards other people or towards God. It can look like a level of discouragement where you just want to completely give up. Or it can look like, just like I was, kind of angsty of like just everything, just over evaluating everything, overthinking everything, like frustrated that I wasn't hearing from the Lord more clearly.
Right.
So yeah, I think that was that.
Because I think for some people there is a clear, some of the examples you even gave in your sermon, there is a clear marker, like the loss of a spouse, loss of a job, a lot of losses, right? Those can be
unanswered prayer.
Yes. Like I'd hoped for this, but this didn't happen. And I think those can be a little more clear markers. And then the questions that come out of that seem to be a little more clear, and you're wondering where God is. And a lot of times sometimes, there are practicals you can do. There's counseling, there's prayer, there's staying in community, staying connected to Jesus. This is why the spiritual practices are so important, right? You keep doing the things even if you don't feel it. And a lot of times when it is something a little more clear, there are people who have walked through those things who can help you get to what is whenever that may be, the other side. Yeah. I think there are other types of walls or dark nights, kind of like one I experienced in 21. Like, I think back to that one, and that was such a weird one for me, because I feel like 2020 hit, and that's when everyone would look back and go, oh my gosh, that year was so hard. And maybe for a lot of people, they did hit a wall with the Lord, and they could see it very clearly. They hit depression or anxiety or loneliness, or they lost people or lost jobs or lost things, right? Actually, when I look back on 2020 and I look back on the things I journaled, and I felt like there was such a season of closeness with the Lord. I remember reading the Psalms every day because, there was a lot of fear in us. We didn't know what was happening in the world. But I remember clinging so close to the Lord. And it was actually one of the best growth seasons with the Lord. Even though what was happening, the chaos of the world, it felt like chaos. But internally, I remember feeling so much peace, so much trust in the Lord. I felt so close to him. I felt like I was hearing his voice. I had so much to write and journal. The notes in my Bible around the Psalms, it was like God was exploding for me. And then 2021 hit, and I don't know what it was, but I remember telling you at some point, I don't know where God is. I can't find him right now. Yeah. And I know that sounds so silly. Yeah, I remember. But I remember thinking, I don't know where he is, and I feel like I've lost him. And that was like a scary feeling for me. having walked with the Lord for so many years and thinking, did I do something wrong? Like, what have I done wrong? We were doing great, God, and now you're silent and I can't find you. But there was no clear turning
there wasn't
point.
Any circumstantial thing.
Nothing circumstantial. And that's when that was the first time someone brought me like a spiritual mapping, spiritual journey type book. And it was the one, Mansions of the Heart. I think it's Tom Ashbrook. Maybe you can look that one up too. But, and that was the first time it was, a rewrite of Teresa of Avila and her idea of what it looks like to walk with the Lord through your life. But in there is writings from John of the Cross of what the dark night of the soul looks like. And I remember reading it and going, oh my gosh, I feel so seen and heard. I feel like he knows what I'm going through. He put language to what I was feeling. There was no huge suffering. I just felt so abandoned in that. It was the whole year basically. And then I remember getting to a point where talking to friends, I realized, okay, I'm going to go to counseling. Like, I'm going to go ahead and still do the things. I'm going to go to counseling. I'm still going to church, even though every single time I was like, I'm worshiping God, but I don't know where you are. But I'm going to keep doing the motions, because not out of this, like, this is what a good Christian does, but it was out of a desperation, right? Like a need, knowing you are somewhere. I know the truth. I know your promises. I know you don't leave me, but this is a wilderness and I can't find you in it. And I remember being so desperate and so broken. And it was a choice of, am I going to keep pursuing him and keep surrendering and keep moving towards him? And eventually I realized there was some anxiety in there that I had to deal with. That's when I got on medication. Not that was it wasn't a magic pill that solved all the things. But I remember being vulnerable with community, continuing in spiritual practices that I had known for years to just press through, to keep just going to counseling, talking about whatever, in that season. And then getting on anxiety medication was super helpful. And it was kind of like, the season shifted. Season changed all of a sudden. And there was no perfect turning point. So that one was a different one to me. That is, I don't know when it's going to end. I don't understand why it's happening, but I'm going to keep pressing through. And God, I'm going to trust your truth that you're going to show up.
And I actually think that, like, though circumstantially there's not a lot of markers and even a lot of like things that you could say, and then God did this and then this. But I think that through that season, my observation from watching you walk through it and not being able to like rescue you from it.
I know.
Not giving you like an answer. Or
I think I did. I was like, what is happening?
Like trying to preach you up or whatever. Like nothing worked. It was just, you were in this. But I think there was a real deepening that happened in the midst of that. And like in terms of your just connection to Jesus. And there's something to me that's really beautiful about that. Again, going back to surrender, like it's a true love relationship will have seasons where there's not a lot of sparks, or maybe even a lot of conflicts. It's just average, everyday, going through the motions, which isn't those aren't non-factors in the relationship. Those are actually really important to the relationship, because you just commit to one another. You just continue to lean into one another. You stay engaged. You get through the season together. And I think that's what you did with Jesus in that season. And I think that's maybe what he was kind of drawing you into, was like, let's just, I mean, we had a lot of activity in our lives for so long. And for you to have this little season where there wasn't like these real external clear markers of what God was doing or what God was saying, but like you just having to trust him in the quiet. Of just like, this is what it is. And I think that you have emerged from that with a deeper connection to him and a deeper intimacy with Jesus. And I think that's the goal really of the wall every time is the intimacy piece. Like, do we come out of it more deeply connected to Jesus? You know, Joran, you're going to have those, you know, that memory of like, God was always faithful and preparing me for what was next and allowing me to go to college and feel good about it. And so I think in the moment it's hard, but looking back, we see the meaning of it, which I think gives it value. But then we also see the fruit of it, the fruit being the deeper connection to Jesus. And to me, that's just the beauty of like a really wise, loving Father who doesn't always just give us what we want. He gives us what we need. And sometimes what we need in different seasons is some adversity or some, you know, a little bit of not what we want in the moment in order to kind of draw us closer to him. So
yeah, I think that's right.
Yeah.
That's good.
So maybe in closing for everyone listening, I think we're all going to have these.
Yeah.
In different
you can
times,
have
in different ways.
More than one season of it. Yeah.
At different times in our lives. And as you pointed out, sometimes you don't even know you went through one and you did. But
that's true.
I never thought about that, but you're right. That season of discernment was probably one for me. But I think having people in your life is really important. Staying connected to Jesus and having people who you can process with, who aren't going to just try and get you, you know, we need to move on. Like, what is it? Like toxic positivity of like, you know what, you just need to believe the best and keep moving forward and put a smile on your face. But people who can sit with you at the wall and help you go through it at the pace that God has set. So
I think it's good.
Yeah. Good thing to consider. Think about past walls in your life, or maybe you're in one right now, and how you can get through it by deeper surrender and deeper intimacy with Jesus. So that's that.
Yeah.
Great convo today. I want to encourage you. We want to hear your comments. We want to get your questions. That will make the podcast even better. We'd love to even hear some stories about some of the walls that you've all gone through in life.
Yeah.
It only kind of deepens our understanding, broadens our understanding of what that really is.
You can email us, DM us, share it in comments. Yeah.
Love to know what you're thinking, what you're asking. And we can't wait to be with you next time on When We Walk.